What if I told you the oldest skyscrapers weren't built in New York, but thousands of years ago in Asia? And that those structures were built not only to last, but to speak to the heavens. Imagine walking through a building where every stone whispers a forgotten prayer, every curve tells a sacred story, every axis aligns with stars. Are you ready to see architecture not just as concrete and stone, but as a gateway to ancient wisdom? Today we unlock hidden messages woven into sacred indigenous Asian architectures and reveal profound cultural narratives that shaped entire civilizations. Welcome to Know. If your curiosity is sparked by archaeology, by sacred landscapes, or by the convergence of faith and form, hit subscribe now because you're in the right place. In this episode, Know. Sacred Indigenous Asian Architectures Revealed. We'll journey across centuries and continents, step into temples and tombs, and decode the spiritual geometry built into stone. Let's begin our exploration. As we move forward, I invite you to carry two questions with you. What was invisible that shaped visible form? And what did ancient builders intend for us to feel today? When most people think of architecture, they think of blueprints, load-bearing walls, styles, columns, corridors. But in many indigenous Asian traditions, the act of building was never a purely mechanical exercise. It was deeply spiritual, cosmological, existential. From the Himalayan foothills to the archipelagos of Southeast Asia, local communities built their sacred spaces over centuries, not via imposed foreign designs, but evolving from native myth, ritual, and a sense that the land itself was alive. These structures are not relics to be admired from a distance. They are living stories, memory in stone, prayer incarnate. They invite us not just to look, but to feel, to walk, to listen. So how do you embed beliefs, cosmologies, and spiritual vision into bricks and spires? Over the next segments, we'll peel back that mystery and see how the unseen, belief, energy, ancestor, cosmos, shaped the scene. Temples, palaces, tombs. Let's begin by understanding how these buildings mapped the heavens on Earth. In many Asian cultures, temples were built as earthly mirrors of celestial order, the macrocosm projected into stone. Through alignments with sunrises, solstices, equinoxes, lunar standstills, builders wove temporal cycles into spatial form. Examples: Borobudur, Java, Indonesia, is often discussed not just as a monumental Buddhist stupa, but as a three-dimensional mandala. Its terraces ascend in layers from the mundane to the sublime, oriented with cardinal directions, and even its relation to the twin temples, Peiwan and Mendut, forms sightlines tied to lunar cycles and solar symbolism. At Angkor Wat, the central tower aligns with the sunrise on the equinox, and its moat walls gallery arrangement replicates the mythical Mount Meru, the cosmic mountain. Some researchers argue its layout embodies the Hindu cosmology of the universe. Prasat Phnom Rung in Thailand is famed for its 15 doorways aligned so that, on select days, the rising sun shines through every opening in perfect sequence. That precision speaks to deep astronomical knowledge and symbolic intention. The Khmer temple Preah Vihear is perched on a ridge. Researchers suggest its layout, including subsidiary structures, coordinate with solar events and possibly the northern lunar standstill. These are not accidental coincidences. They reflect a worldview in which time, cosmos, and ritual are inseparable from structure. Beyond astronomy, ancient builders also believed in subtle energies, land spirits, currents of ki, geomantic flows. Their design principles sought to harness and harmonize those forces. In China, Feng Shui, literally wind and water, is a system for siting and orienting buildings, using mountains, watercourses, prevailing winds, and directional auspices to optimize the flow of ki. Even the shape of rooms, placement of doors, and direction of corridors mattered. In India, the ancient science Vastu Shastra, dating in parts to Vedic texts, lays out rules for orientation, spatial zoning, proportions, and the alignment of the Brahmasthan, central core. Architects used vastu mandalas, grid diagrams mapping cosmic order, to organize every element. Many temples in Southeast Asia incorporate local geomantic wisdom, blending indigenous concepts of ley lines, sacred hills, rivers, and energy nodes with imported ideas. The result, the building is woven into the soul of the land. It is not plopped down in isolation, but grown out of topography, energy, and consciousness. Perhaps the most fascinating idea is that the act of construction itself was ritual, spiritual, meditative. At groundbreaking, builders often performed consecrations, chants, and offerings. Quarrying stone was not merely physical. Stones were ritually purified, tested, and worshipped. Carving reliefs, shaping spires, placing sculptures, each step could be recited, blessed, and aligned with cosmic symbolism. The master architect, or Sthapati in India, was seen as the mediator between divine blueprint and material reality. Thus, the temple is not simply the output of spiritual ideas. The process itself is a sacred practice. The maker becomes part of the spiritual structure. From this cosmic skeleton, we now move to the flesh: temples, stupas, gates, ritual paths. In Asian sacred architecture, nearly every element, gate, finial, statue, is symbolic. In Thailand, temple roofs often terminate in chofa, finials shaped like horned birds or nagas, believed to summon celestial beings or ward off evil. In Indonesian Kandy, entrance portals commonly feature Kala heads, mythical creatures whose purpose is to swallow negative forces, flanked by Makara, hybrid sea creatures that guard thresholds. Their shapes often merge crocodile, elephant, fish, or serpent forms. The stylized tiers of pagodas and stupas echo myriad levels of the universe, from the earthly base to the topping jewel, the yasti or chatravali, a vertical axis lifting spirit to sky. Gateways, Torana, Gopura, Mandapas, mediate the transition from profane to sacred. As you pass beneath, you symbolically leave the mundane behind and enter the sacred sphere. Statues of deities, guardians, bodhisattvas, and mythical creatures fill niches, each posture, mudra, orientation, gesture, carrying a coded meaning tied to cosmology, ethics, and spiritual narrative. Through this semiotic grammar, the whole temple tells a story, a myth, a journey, a cosmological drama. Visiting a sacred site was not a casual stroll. It was a ritual journey, carefully choreographed. At Borobudur, pilgrims ascend the temple level by level, circumambulating each terrace clockwise, gradually removing ignorance and drawing closer to enlightenment. In many Buddhist stupas, devotees walk around, pradakshina, in a prescribed direction and pace, pausing at cardinal points to make offerings or recite mantras. Hindus walking through a temple might pass through gopuras, tower gateways, cross courtyards, step over thresholds, ascend stairways, eventually reach the inner sanctum where the Murti, deity image, resides. Each step, threshold, and turn is meaningful. Transitions, liminality, purification, preparation. Temple layout guides the pilgrim's mind. In effect, the architecture choreographs your spiritual progress. When temples were alive, they resonated with sound, scent, motion. Bells rang, gongs sounded, drums resonated. Incense smoke curled upward. Priests chanted Vedas, sutras, mantras, with ritual gestures and offerings. Processions with deities, sacred fire ceremonies, homams, yajnas, seasonal festivals synchronized with solstices and equinoxes, all revived the sacred geometry in lived time. Today, many of those rituals lie dormant or survive only in fragments. Archaeologists, historians, and revived traditions gradually piece them back. But when you visit a temple, part of what you see is silence, the echo of what once was. Yet even in silence, the stones carry memory. Let us now step beyond temples to royal spaces and ancestral gateways. In many Asian kingdoms, the royal palace was itself a sacred axis. The king was more than administrator. He was cosmic pivot, mediator between gods, ancestors, and people. Palace layouts often mirrored temple forms: courtyards, axis, ritual gardens, ponds, processional paths. The king's throne room could be aligned to cardinal or cosmic directions, with reflections, water mirrors, or sky views reinforcing sacred geometry. The very act of ruling was imbued with symbolism. The palace becomes a microcosm of the universe, with the monarch at its center. In some cultures, the palace precinct and the sacred city around it become one integrated sacred realm. Tombs of kings and emperors were not merely burial sites. They were constructed to secure the ruler's ongoing presence in cosmic and earthly flows. In China, imperial tomb complexes are placed according to feng shui rules: a mountain at the back, water in front, spirit paths lined with stone animals and human figures. The layout is designed to channel auspicious energy to the dead ruler and protect the living realm. In Vietnam, Korea, and elsewhere, royal mausolea are similarly positioned, straddling energy lines, with guardian statues, gates, and halls that mediate between worlds. The symbolic guardians, stone lions, dragons, elephants, mythical beasts, stand sentinel against chaos, but also signal the power of the buried sovereign. These tombs look to both the living and the dead, binding them in ancestral lineage. The palace and tomb complexes we see today are often ruins, fragments, layered across time. Dynasties rose and fell, religious shifts overtook erstwhile sanctuaries, temples were converted or abandoned. Yet the architectural skeletons remain, waiting for us to listen. As we reconstruct orientations, lineages, and carvings, we hear whispers: what people believed, how they related to cosmos, how they honored ancestors, how they affirmed power, and how they hoped to endure. Even in architectural decay, there is story, there is voice, there is meaning. Now, after tracing the spiritual backbone of ancient architecture, let's draw lessons for our modern lives. These ancient sacred structures are not relics to be locked in museums. Their principles still resonate. The idea of harmony with nature, orienting buildings, opening to sky, respecting topography, stands in stark contrast to some modern urban impositions. Sacred geometry, proportion, symmetry, sacred grid layouts are being revisited in contemporary architecture and landscape design. The notion that a building can carry ethical, spiritual, ecological meaning reminds us that what we build matters beyond function. If we learn from them, our architecture can become more humane, more meaningful. But these treasures are fragile. They face threats: weather, erosion, tourism wear, encroaching development, neglect, looting, even political conflict. Yet across Asia, there are efforts. UNESCO and national bodies restoring temple complexes, Angkor, Bagan, Ayutthaya, community-driven initiatives where local custodians revive rituals, maintain shrines, re-entwine spiritual life. Archaeologists, artists, technologists collaborating on digital reconstructions, augmented reality, mapping. Not just to restore stone, but to revive meaning. We must treat these sites not as static artifacts, but as sacred places demanding care, respect, and living attention. To you, watching, if you ever stand before an ancient temple or World Heritage ruin, don't just take selfies. Slow down. Walk its path, feel its axes, watch sunrise or shadow play, observe thresholds, trace carvings, imagine the ritual life that once pulsed there. Go not just as a tourist, but as a seeker. Ask, why here? Why this alignment? What was this threshold for? What was once chanted? Let architecture speak. Let it open new lenses on meaning. If this journey interested you, please subscribe, ring the bell, share the video. Bring others into this deeper way of seeing. In future episodes, we'll do deep dives region by region. Sacred India, ancient Japan, Himalayan shrines, Central Asian caravanserais. I hope you'll come with me. Thank you for walking this path with me. May your next visit to a temple or ruin feel alive. May stone whisper. Until next time, know more, be more.